Sitting in the absolute scorching heat of South India, there was a man who picked up a sharp iron stylus.
Right.
And he literally carved exactly 14,000 specific prophecies onto dried palm leaves.
Yeah, and we're not talking vague guesses here. I mean, he predicted that a woman would rule India for exactly 16 years.
Mhm.
And Indira Gandhi's tenure as prime minister, exactly 15 years and 300 days.
That's incredibly precise. He also wrote that humans would figure out how to, quote, light lamps with water.
Exactly. A flawless description of hydroelectric power.
And he predicted that non-living carriages would move rapidly across the land, without the need for horses or bullocks.
Right, which is just a dead-on articulation of the internal combustion engine and the modern automobile.
So wait, are we looking at some lucky guesser throwing vague Nostradamus-style poetry at the wall? Or did this 17th century mystic actually, mathematically map out the collapse of human history?
Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Exactly. You are riding shotgun on a massive investigation today. We are doing a deep dive into a world where ancient mythical predictions crash headfirst into verified physical reality. We are checking the receipts on Potuluri Veerabrahmendra Swamy.
Yeah, and most people respectfully just refer to him as Brahmam Garu.
Brahmam Garu.
And that text, the one he carved into those palm leaves, it's called the Kalagnanam.
The book of the future. And, the craziest part of this entire setup,
What's that?
the vast majority of those original physical palm leaves aren't even sitting in some museum display case.
No, they're not. They're currently locked away in subterranean vaults beneath a temple in Kandamalaya, literally sealed off from the world.
Sealed off. But, the fragments and the copies that did make it into the public domain, they've been relentlessly scrutinized.
Oh, absolutely. Because, look, the things he wrote are not your average psychic guesswork. This isn't someone gazing into a crystal ball and seeing misty shapes,
Right, exactly. If you look at standard Western astrology, it's totally psychological. It's horoscopes in the Sunday paper. Like, oh, you're going to have a communicative Tuesday.
Yeah, totally vague.
But Vedic astrology, Jyotisha, is fundamentally different. It is a rigid mathematical astronomical tracking system.
Right. It measures the exact sidereal position of planets against fixed star constellations. And the thing is, Brahmam Garu used this system as a highly specific timing device.
He essentially built a cosmic alarm clock.
He did. And his primary trigger, like the mechanism he used to predict global disaster, was the transit of the planet Saturn.
Which is the slowest moving of the visible planets, right?
Precisely. In Vedic astrology, Saturn represents pressure. It represents karma, restriction, structural breakdown, and just undeniable reality.
The heavy stuff.
Exactly. And Brahmam Garu explicitly wrote that whenever Saturn enters the specific zodiac sign of Gemini, which is known as Mithuna Rashi, the world will experience severe, cascading geopolitical and environmental collapse.
Okay, hold on. Fact check time. Let's look at the mechanics of that orbit. Saturn takes roughly 29.5 years to complete one full revolution around the sun.
Right. And because it moves so slowly, when it finally enters Gemini, it stays there for exactly 2.5 years.
2.5 years?
Yeah, so that 2.5-year window is the alarm clock ringing.
Okay, look. If he had the math to predict global breakdowns down to a specific planetary transit, we can verify that. We can pull the astronomical data right now.
Let's do it.
Let's run the exact dates. When did Saturn enter Gemini in modern recorded history? Give me the receipts.
Okay, let's start tracking in the 20th century. The first major transit of the 1900s occurred in 1913.
Wait, 1913, that's the literal buildup. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and the complete catastrophic outbreak of World War I in 1914.
Correct. The absolute overthrow of global empires. I mean, you're looking at the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires.
Wow.
Approximately 37 million casualties.
That is a direct hit on the timeline. A complete structural collapse of the old world. Okay, when was the next transit? Add the 30 years.
Exactly one Saturn orbit later, 1943.
1943, are you kidding me? That is the absolute bloodiest, most desperate height of World War II. The Battle of Stalingrad is wrapping up. The Holocaust is at its most industrialized phase.
Right. And it wasn't just the mechanized warfare either. Look at the environmental and supply chain breakdown. That exact astronomical window perfectly aligns with the Bengal famine in India.
Which was a disaster of apocalyptic proportions. I mean, you had a combination of cyclone damage, massive crop disease, and British wartime policies completely halting rice imports.
Exactly. Millions starved to death in the streets of Calcutta, while global superpowers literally incinerated each other.
That's horrifying.
It is. Between the global warfare and the famine, you're looking at roughly 50 to 70 million human casualties worldwide during that specific 2.5-year window.
Okay, so that's 2 for 2 on the worst conflicts in human history. Give me the next 30-year mark.
1973.
1973. Now wait. There is no global mechanized world war happening in 1973. Did the alarm clock fail? Did the math break down?
Not at all. You have to look at the regional collapses in the environmental data. The 1973 to 1975 window is horrific.
Okay, what happened?
Well, it brings the Bangladesh famine, which destabilized an entire newly formed nation, and more specifically, it brings Super Typhoon Nina in China in 1975.
Oh man, the Bankyo Dam collapse? That is one of the most terrifying engineering disasters of the 20th century.
The massive cascading dam failures, a literal wall of water wiping out entire cities in the middle of the night.
Unbelievable.
Hundreds of thousands dead, absolute structural collapse of the environment and human infrastructure. Millions upon millions of lives devastated.
3 for 3. The pattern holds perfectly. Okay, bring us into the 21st century.
Add another 30 years. The next transit begins in 2003.
2003, the United States invasion of Iraq. The total destabilization of the Middle East.
Yes, but look closer at the timeline. That 2.5-year transit window stays open until late 2005, which means it covers a very specific date.
Which is?
December 26, 2004.
Oh, wow. The Indian Ocean tsunami.
Yes. A 9.1 magnitude megathrust earthquake ruptures the fault line between the Burma Plate and the Indian Plate, literally one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded human history.
Over 230,000 lives wiped out in a matter of hours. And the seismic shift of that earthquake was so massive, it literally altered the Earth's rotation.
Yeah, it shortened the length of a day.
Wait, so 4 for 4 on the worst geopolitical and environmental collapses in modern history?
4 for 4.
That is not a coincidence. That is a terrifyingly accurate pattern. If you try to dismiss that as random chance, you're just ignoring basic statistical probability.
And look, it gets wilder. The Kalagnanam is packed with these hyper-specific localized hits. He wrote that fair-faced people would arrive from across the oceans and rule the country.
The British Raj, direct imperial rule.
Yep. He wrote that a great soul named Gandhi would be born and bring freedom.
Wait, hold on. He didn't just describe a peaceful leader. He explicitly used the phonetic name Gandhi.
Yes, the literal name is in the text. He also wrote that movie actors will become politicians and rule the people.
Okay, think about how specific that is. He's writing in the 1600s. Movies do not exist. Electricity does not exist.
Right.
Yet he clearly visualizes a medium of projected imagery, the creation of celebrities through that medium, and their eventual transition into state power.
Which perfectly mapped to South Indian history, by the way. I mean, look at figures like N.T. Rama Rao and M.G. Ramachandran.
Yeah, massive stars.
Right, these were godlike movie stars who literally stepped off the silver screen to become overwhelmingly powerful chief ministers of entire Indian states.
But I want to dig into the mechanics of his visions for a second. How does a 17th century artisan articulate a car or an electric dam? What specific Telugu syntax was he even using on these palm leaves?
That is where the linguistics get absolutely fascinating. Let's take the automobile prediction. He obviously didn't have the vocabulary for, like, pistons or spark plugs or vulcanized rubber tires.
Right.
So he used the phrase Jivam Leni Ratham.
Which translates literally to what?
A chariot without life. Or a carriage without a soul.
Wow.
Yeah, he is describing the distinct absence of biological propulsion. A cart that moves without a horse, without a bullock, or a human exertion.
That is brilliant. He's describing the negative space of the technology. But what about societal shifts? War, earthquakes, and politicians are one thing. But did he predict the internal decay of human values, like how we act today?
Oh, he absolutely did. In fact, here is one of the most blistering, laser-focused critiques in the entire text.
Yeah.
Brahmam Garu wrote that in the future, people would literally, quote, sell goddess Saraswati.
Saraswati, the Hindu deity of knowledge, music, art, wisdom, and learning.
Right. Now, think about what that means in modern India, or, frankly, anywhere in the modern hyper-capitalist world. How do you sell the goddess of learning?
You commercialize education. You turn the pursuit of knowledge into a purely financial transaction.
Bullseye. Scholars point to this specific prophecy as a direct, undeniable hit on the modern management quota system.
Which fundamentally corrupts the entire meritocracy of learning. In many private engineering and medical colleges, there are seats reserved not for the highest scoring students, right?
Oh,
They're reserved for the highest bidders.
Exactly. Parents literally buy medical and engineering college seats for their kids with massive under-the-table donations. Millions of rupees.
That's insane.
Education is no longer a sacred pursuit of enlightenment. It's a commodity. It is a status symbol bought and sold on an open market. You are literally auctioning off Saraswati.
It's deeply cynical. But how does a guy living in the 1600s, I mean, a time of localized agrarian village economies and feudal kings, conceive of an industrialized, hyper-capitalist education market?
Well, it comes down to how he viewed time and, honestly, how he manipulated language to hack his reader's psychology.
What do you mean?
He used this fascinating literary device in the Kalagnanam called grammatical transposition.
Okay, explain the mechanics of that. What is grammatical transposition in this context?
So he would routinely write about ancient past events as if they were going to happen in the future.
Okay.
And crucially, he would write about horrifying future events as if they were happening right now in the present tense.
He scrambled the tense markers. Why? That
No.
sounds intentionally confusing.
It wasn't an error. It was a deliberate, highly sophisticated psychological mechanism. Brahmam Garu believed humanity was entering the deepest, darkest, most degraded phase of the Kali Yuga.
The age of vice. The final cycle of moral collapse in Hindu cosmology.
Exactly. So by writing about future horrors like the commercialization of sacred knowledge or devastating wars in the present tense, he made that collapse visceral.
He's forcing them to feel it.
Right. He removed the psychological safety net of distance. He wanted his readers to feel the urgency of this moral decay breathing down their necks. He made the future feel like an immediate physical threat.
He's basically hacking their perception of linear time. If the X-ray machine of history usually gives us a clean, chronological timeline, he just took a hammer and shattered the machine.
Beautifully put, yes.
The past is the future is now. That is a brilliant literary tool. But look, I gotta be honest, words on a palm leaf are still just words.
Okay. Skepticism. I like it.
Grammatical tricks and linguistic interpretations are fascinating, but we are doing a deep dive into checked, verified history. If he had the mathematical ability to map out a global war down to the exact year, it forces us to look at his physical predictions with the exact same scientific scrutiny.
Fair enough.
Words can be debated. I need something we can touch. Okay, Emma, wait, sorry, skip that. Okay, give me physical, tangible evidence that his prophecies are active right now.
You want physical evidence?
Yes, physical evidence.
Okay. We are going to the Nandial district in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Specifically, we are walking right into the courtyard of the Sri Yaganti Maheswara temple.
Okay, paint the picture for us. What are we looking at?
This is an ancient, stunning temple complex built right into the side of the Yaramala Hills. And sitting prominently in the temple courtyard is a massive, monolithic stone statue of Nandi.
Nandi, the sacred bull, the divine vehicle of the god Shiva, always positioned facing the main shrine.
Exactly. It's this gorgeous, imposing piece of sculpture carved from a single block of stone.
Yeah.
Now, Brahmam Garu explicitly wrote about this specific physical statue in the Kalagnanam 4 centuries ago.
And what did he say?
He predicted that this stone Nandi would physically grow.
Stop. A growing rock?
Wait, it gets better. He said the stone bull would consistently grow in size, eventually come to life, and at the absolute end of the current age, a cosmic event called the Yugantam, it will let out a thunderous, deafening roar that will echo across the entire Earth.
Okay, I have to throw a massive red flag here. A roaring, growing stone bull is straight-up folklore. It's mythology designed to scare children into behaving. You cannot bring a growing rock to a historical audit. I need hard scientific proof.
Well, get ready, because here is the ultimate mic drop of this entire deep dive. The Archaeological Survey of India, the ASI.
The ASI, the official premier government body for archaeological research and historic preservation in India.
Yes, the ASI. They literally deployed scientists and geologists to the Yaganti temple to investigate the local claims that the statue was getting bigger.
No way.
They didn't just look at it. They took exacting measurements, they analyzed the structural geology of the rock, and they officially, scientifically confirmed it.
Wait. You are telling me the government's official archaeologists confirmed a mythological prophecy?
They confirmed the physical reality of the phenomenon. The ASI concluded that the Yaganti Nandi statue physically swells by approximately 1 inch every 20 years.
Wait, the government is literally monitoring a growing prophetic statue. How is that scientifically possible? Rocks do not undergo biological growth.
No, they don't grow biologically, but they do expand chemically.
Okay, explain.
Let's dive into the geological mechanics. The ASI discovered that this specific statue was carved out of a highly unique type of rock. It is a high mineral stone that is incredibly rich in silica and iron.
Silica and iron. Okay, I'm following.
So, when a stone with this exact chemical composition and porosity is continuously exposed to atmospheric moisture over decades, it undergoes a complex chemical reaction. It's a process called mineral hydration.
So the water molecules from the humid air are actually penetrating the stone itself.
Yes, through capillary action. The water molecules bond with the iron and the silica, physically altering the crystalline structure of the minerals inside the rock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and as those minerals hydrate, they take up more physical space. The rock literally undergoes a volumetric expansion. It is absorbing its environment and swelling outward.
That is mind-blowing.
It's so undeniable that the temple authorities have had to repeatedly tear down and remove the structural stone pillars that originally surrounded the statue.
Wait, seriously?
Yes. They keep having to give it more room because the bowl keeps expanding outward and wedging itself against the columns.
Let's just process the magnitude of this for a second. You have a 17th century mystic pointing at a rock and telling his followers, hey, watch this specific statue. It is going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And 400 years later, modern chemists arrive with laser measuring tools and conclude, yep, the iron silica hydration is causing a 1-inch volumetric expansion every 2 decades.
That is the ultimate receipt.
But, I mean, a swelling rock is just one anomaly. Does the text contain other physical triggers?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Kalagnanam is loaded with bizarre physical warnings meant to signal the final cosmic transition. They basically serve as physical milestones on the road to the Yaganti.
Okay, give me the mechanics. What else is supposed to happen?
Well, he predicted that at the legendary hyper-wealthy temple of Tirupati, the right shoulder of the main Venkateswara Swamy idol would visibly shake.
Just the right shoulder.
Just the right shoulder. And right after that physical shaking occurs, massive tectonic shifts and violent landslides would completely block all access routes into the sacred hills, effectively cutting the temple off from humanity.
He's literally tying a geological warning system to a localized idol.
Yes. He also wrote that the ancient idol of Kanchi Kamakshi will literally shed tears.
Shed tears, okay.
And at the massive Srisalam temple complex, the idol of Lord Mallikarjuna would begin inexplicably emitting smoke and fire from the stone itself.
An idol smoking and catching fire. I mean, that could be a chemical reaction similar to the hydration of the Nandi, but
Like-
exothermic, right?
Exactly. It's possible. And it gets biologically weirder, too.
Weirder than a burning rock.
Much weirder. He predicted a wild crocodile would emerge from the Krishna River, enter the sacred shrine of the goddess Brahmaramba at Srisalam, bleat like a goat for 8 straight days, and then completely vanish.
Bleat like a goat. A reptilian vocalization anomaly.
That is exactly what the text says.
Look, I want you, the listener, to just imagine standing in one of these massive ancient stone temples today. You are looking at these statues. You know for a fact that government scientists are literally measuring their expansion.
It's eerie.
You are watching modern geological and chemical realities line up perfectly with a 400-year-old warning. It forces you to completely reevaluate everything you think you know about linear time.
It forces you to take the author seriously. Which brings us to the most vital question of this entire investigation. Who exactly was Potuluri Veerabrahmendra Swamy?
Right, because if you hear about a guy predicting the end of the world, growing bulls, and the commercialization of schools, you picture a king. Or, you picture some high-ranking Orthodox priest sitting in a gold-plated palace with access to all the royal libraries.
Exactly, but this is where the history gets incredibly radical. To understand Brahmam Garu, we have to completely rebuild the socio-political climate of 17th century South India.
Walk us through the environment. What does society actually look like when he is carving these palm leaves?
Well, we're looking at the medieval period in the Andhra region, specifically the Rayalaseema area. Politically, the massive Vijayanagara Empire had collapsed decades earlier.
Right.
So the region was heavily fractured, ruled by the Qutbi Shahi dynasty out of Golconda. But the local day-to-day administration, it was utterly dominated by rigid, orthodox Brahmanical systems.
Meaning the social hierarchy was locked down tight.
Brutally rigid. It was an era defined by extreme caste discrimination and severe socioeconomic deprivation. The religious elites dictated every single aspect of life.
Wow.
They decided who was allowed to read holy texts, who was allowed to enter temples, and who was considered clean or unclean.
Right, the untouchability system.
Exactly. Marginalized communities, particularly Dalits, were treated as absolute untouchables, forced to live in segregated, impoverished hamlets, completely cut off from the main village infrastructure.
It's an incredibly oppressive, exclusionary hierarchy. It's basically a closed loop of power.
Completely closed. And into this violently segregated world walks Brahmam Garu. Now, he was not a Brahmin priest. He was an artisan. He belonged to the Vishwakarma community.
Okay, break down the Vishwakarma identity for us. What is their socio-economic function in this era?
The Vishwakarmas are the makers, the creators, the engineers. They practiced the 5 great trades: carpentry, blacksmithing, bronze casting, stone carving, and goldsmithing.
So they build everything.
Everything. Brahmam Garu worked with his hands. He hit iron on an anvil. He carved wood. He chipped stone.
So they are existing in a very strange liminal space. I mean, the artisans literally build the temples and sculpt the gods, but because of the caste system, they're often pushed to the margins of society by the priests who take over those temples once the building is done.
Exactly. And because of this highly unique position, Brahmam Garu didn't just write prophecies. He waged a massive ground-level social rebellion. He completely bypassed the orthodox elites and went straight to the subaltern classes.
So wait, he wasn't just predicting the future. He was actively dismantling 17th century social hierarchies. He's fighting for fundamental human equality.
He absolutely was. Just look at the people he deliberately chose to surround himself with. In a time when religious knowledge was violently restricted by birthright, he appointed a Muslim boy as his chief and #1 disciple.
Wait, a Muslim boy leading a Hindu spiritual lineage in the 1600s.
Yes. His name was Dudekala Siddhaya. He belonged to a highly marginalized community of cotton cleaners and mattress makers.
Okay.
They practiced a localized folk version of Islam. Siddhaya actually ran away from his own Orthodox family to find Brahmam Garu, and the sage welcomed him with open arms, eventually passing his most sacred, advanced philosophical teachings directly to him.
That alone would have caused a massive social riot. I mean, the local elites must have lost their minds.
Oh, they did. Even Brahmam Garu's own biological sons were furious. They refused to let Siddhaya into the ashram. They couldn't stand the idea of a Muslim cotton cleaner standing above them.
Wow, even his own kids.
Yeah, but the Swami aggressively rebuked his own children. He told them, flat out, that spiritual eligibility is determined strictly by devotion and inner purity, never by the circumstances of your birth.
That is a revolutionary statement for the medieval period.
And he didn't stop with Siddhaya either. He also brought a man named Kakaya into his absolute inner circle.
Give us the context on Kakaya.
Kakaya was a Dalit, specifically from the Madiga caste. Their traditional occupation was leatherworking, dealing with animal hides.
Right, which was considered highly impure by the elites.
Exactly. In the 17th century, the Orthodox society told Kakaya that his very shadow was polluting. They told him he was inherently untouchable. But Brahmam Garu brought him into the inner sanctum and told him he was divine.
This guy is a total radical. He is literally taking a sledgehammer to the entire system from the inside out.
And he constantly, relentlessly tested the arrogance of the high caste elites who tried to latch onto his growing popularity. There is this incredibly visceral, shocking anecdote from his historical hagiography. It's known as the dog carcass test.
Oh man, the dog carcass test.
Yeah.
The mechanics of the story are brutal. Walk us through it.
Okay, so Brahmam Garu wanted to expose the hidden spiritual pride of his upper caste followers. They were all walking together down a rural road one day, and they came across the rotting, decaying, sun-baked carcass of a dog.
Oof.
It was worm-ridden, swarming with flies, the absolute definition of physical impurity. The Swami stopped the group, pointed at the horrific mess, and ordered his disciples to eat it.
He commanded them to eat rotting roadkill.
Yes. And immediately, the high caste elites recoiled in absolute terror and disgust. They backed away, covering their faces, their strict rules of purity completely offended.
Naturally.
But Siddhaya, the Muslim boy from the cotton cleaning family, stepped forward without a single microsecond of hesitation. He showed absolute, unquestioning surrender to his teacher.
So he passed the test because his ego wasn't tied to societal rules of purity, and the elites failed because they were still completely trapped in the hierarchy.
Exactly. Brahmam Garu used aggressive shock tactics to prove that true purity is a state of the mind, not a list of dietary or social rules. And he didn't just smash the caste system, by the way. He completely shattered the patriarchy of spiritual succession.
Let's check the receipts on that. How did a 17th century artisan dismantle male primogeniture?
Well, when it was time for his life to end, he decided to enter a state called Sajiva Samadhi.
Let's define that. It literally translates to living tomb, right?
Yes, it is the practice of entering the grave while still alive. A deep, permanent, terminal state of meditation where the biological body ceases functioning, but the consciousness intentionally merges with the absolute.
Intense.
Very. But before he entered the earth, he was required to name a formal successor to lead his massive spiritual lineage.
And in almost every traditional Indian lineage, that authority goes directly to the eldest son.
He had 5 biological sons. He bypassed every single one of them.
He cut his own sons out of the lineage.
Completely ignored them. He bypassed all 5 sons and handed his ultimate spiritual authority, his entire movement, to his daughter, Veeranarayanama.
Hold on. He put a woman in charge of a massive religious movement in the 1600s. That is not just breaking a glass ceiling. That is dropping a thermonuclear bomb on the patriarchy.
He established a matriarchal power structure right in the middle of a deeply patriarchal society.
Yeah.
And that divine feminine power carried down the bloodline too.
Absolutely. Who came next?
His granddaughter, Eshwari Devi. She became a massive mystic philosopher in her own right. She wrote her own complex prophecies. She taught highly advanced non-dualistic philosophy to massive crowds.
Did she have any physical receipts of her own? Like, did she perform any verifiable anomalies?
Yes, she did. According to the historical records, she performed a massive public miracle in the village of Vinakonda. She literally lit clay lamps filled with pure water instead of oil, sustaining a flame without combustible fuel.
Just like her grandfather's prediction.
Just like her grandfather had done years earlier in the royal court of the Nawab of Hyderabad.
So the power runs in the bloodline. Let's frame this for you, the listener, for a second. This deep dive isn't just about a guy staring at the stars and guessing the future. He built an entire theology around the Panchabrahma, the 5 creators of iron, wood, copper, stone, and gold.
He elevated manual labor to a divine status.
Right. He taught that a blacksmith hitting an anvil or a carpenter cutting wood was exactly the same as a Brahmin priest chanting in a temple.
He made physical work holy. He made the marginalized the actual center of the universe.
Okay. We have established his historical reality. He was a radical social reformer. He nailed the 20th century, predicting world wars, the commercialization of schools, and mega tsunamis.
Yep.
The statues he pointed at are physically growing under government surveillance today. Which brings us to the most critical and, frankly, the most terrifying part of this entire deep dive.
The eschatological horizon.
What is next on his calendar? What does this ancient radical carpenter say is coming for us, like right now in the 21st century?
This is where we cross into absolute future shock. The ultimate culminating prediction of the Kalagnanam is the arrival of a supreme messianic savior, a figure named Sri Veera Boga Vasantarayalu.
Let's break down that identity. Who is this figure?
He is incredibly closely identified with the avatar Kalki. In Hindu cosmology, Kalki is the 10th and final major incarnation of Lord Vishnu.
He is the ultimate closer.
Exactly. The one who arrives riding a white horse with a blazing sword, the absolute lowest, most corrupted point of human morality. His mission is to violently cleanse the earth and restore the golden age, the Satya Yuga.
But I'm going to push back here. Saviors on white horses with flaming swords are great for mythological poetry, but we are looking for verifiable mechanics here.
Sure.
Give me the geopolitical reality. How does the global system actually break down? How do we physically arrive at a point where the planet requires a divine reset?
Okay, before we get into the exact geopolitical specifics, we need to make something explicitly clear to the listener.
Yes, absolute political impartiality rule is in effect right now. Listeners, we are strictly, impartially reporting the translated contents of a 17th century historical source material.
Right, we are not taking geopolitical sides.
We are not endorsing any of these viewpoints or predicting actual state actions. We are acting entirely as historical auditors, just checking the receipts of a 400-year-old text.
Exactly. So according to the timeline mapped out in the Kalagnanam, before this Kalki figure can fully reveal himself, the global system must endure a massive, mind-bending trilateral world war. World War III.
Trilateral, meaning 3 distinct opposing military coalitions.
Yes. And depending on which specific palm leaf manuscript timeline you follow, because there is some chronological elasticity built into how scholars translate the 60-year Telugu calendar cycles, this 4-year global war is predicted to trigger violently between the years 2057 and 2060.
A 4-year trilateral war peaking in 2057. Break down the specific teams for me. Who does Brahmam Garu say is actually involved in this conflict?
Team 1. The primary instigators, according to the text. The prophecy explicitly states this global conflict is triggered by China. Specifically, it predicts that China will unilaterally attack and annex northern polar territories currently belonging to Russia.
Wait, hold on. A resource war over the Arctic? That is literally the most cutting-edge modern geopolitical fear we have right now.
It really is.
You have polar ice melting, new shipping lanes opening up, and massive untapped oil and gas reserves. A 17th century Indian artisan predicted a polar resource war.
He did. The text claims China will launch massive, unannounced missile strikes into these northern territories. Furthermore, the prophecy states they will form a massive, unprecedented military coalition with Islamic and Gulf states to solidify their resource dominance.
Okay, so Team 1 is a Sino-Gulf alliance acting aggressively in the Arctic. Who is Team 2?
Team 2 is the forced Western alliance. The text says that this sudden, overwhelming aggression in the polar regions drags the United States and Russia into a desperate joint military alliance to fight back against Team 1.
The United States and Russia forced to team up. That is a massive geopolitical paradigm shift. I mean, it goes against a century of Cold War infrastructure. And Team 3?
Team 3 is the defensive coalition. And according to the prophecy, they're the ones who ultimately emerge victorious.
Who are they?
This alliance is heavily Eastern. It is led by India, Japan, South Korea, and various Buddhist nations banding together to survive the crossfire.
An Eastern Defensive Pact.
Yes. And they are prophesied to be led into victory by a mysterious, uniting leader who wears a, quote, blue crown.
A blue crown. That sounds incredibly specific. Is it a literal blue crown or is that a translation metaphor? I mean, United Nations peacekeepers wear blue helmets. Is this a reference to a global governing body stepping in?
That remains one of the great linguistic mysteries for scholars to decode. The Telugu phrase could be literal or symbolic. But the horror of this prophecy doesn't stop with just troop movements and missile strikes.
Right, because this is Brahmam Garu. His predictions always combine human chaos with environmental collapse. What are the cosmic wildcards? What else is happening while these 3 massive coalitions are destroying the planet?
I am dropping the heaviest bombs right now. During the absolute peak of this 4-year trilateral war, while the missiles are flying, the text predicts a cataclysmic celestial impact.
What kind of impact?
A 1-mile-wide asteroid will breach the Earth's atmosphere and strike South India.
An asteroid strike in the middle of World War III.
Yes.
The kinetic energy of a 1-mile-wide rock hitting the Earth is incomprehensible.
The text is shockingly specific, too. It names the exact impact site as a place called Kanhanuro. The impact is so violently kinetic that it shatters the tectonic plates. It triggers massive global earthquakes and mega tsunamis.
Wow.
The text explicitly says the entire shape of the Indian eastern coastline will be physically, geographically altered forever.
Altered how? What does the map look like after the impact?
The prophecy states the water will violently recede, and the coastline will shift into a rigid rectangular shape.
That is cataclysmic. I mean, if a 1-mile asteroid hits the ocean or the coastline, the heat flash alone vaporizes everything for hundreds of miles.
Absolutely.
It creates tsunamis hundreds of feet high. The ash cloud thrown into the stratosphere would trigger an instant global nuclear winter, blocking out the sun for years.
And speaking of nuclear winter, the text is explicit about advanced, world-ending weapons being used in this conflict. It specifically names New Delhi,
the political capital of India.
The prophecy states that New Delhi will be hit by devastating, unprecedented attacks involving lethal chemical clouds and nuclear-like devastation.
Just totally wiped out.
The destruction is so absolute, so thoroughly irradiated, that the government is forced to completely abandon the north. The Indian capital is permanently relocated south to a place called Yaganti, near the ancient boulder-strewn ruins of Hampi in Karnataka.
Let me just summarize this absolute nightmare. We have China, the U.S., and Russia locked in a massive polar missile war. We have an Eastern alliance fighting for survival. We have a 1-mile-wide asteroid slamming into the subcontinent.
Yep.
The coastlines are turning into literal rectangles from tectonic shearing, and New Delhi is nuked into a radioactive crater. What is the final biological tally on humanity here?
Horrific. The text predicts that the global human population will be completely decimated. When the smoke finally clears and the ash settles, humanity is cut down to just 1/7 of its pre-war size.
1/7. That is an extinction-level bottleneck event. 6 out of every 7 human beings on planet Earth completely gone.
And the environment is ruined. The oceans are entirely polluted from the fallout and the asteroid impact. The text warns that aquatic species will become virtually extinct.
That's devastating.
And the scariest, most hyper-specific detail, it names the Jararu River in Andhra Pradesh.
Why point out one specific river in the middle of a global apocalypse?
Because the prophecy states that when this war finally ends, the Jararu will be the absolute only source of unpolluted, fresh, drinkable water left on the entire planet.
The entire surviving human race relying on one single river in South India. That is a bleak, post-apocalyptic wasteland. Are there any other biological anomalies predicted for this irradiated time?
Briefly, yes. The text mentions bizarre, terrifying biological mutations resulting from this toxic, chemically altered environment. It warns of red ants mutating to the size of elephants.
Okay, we are into literal monster movie territory now. Gigantism caused by radiation.
And plant mutations, too. A strange hybrid Eda tree, which is a type of date palm that behaves like a sentient animal.
Wait, behaves how?
It sleeps flat on the ground at night and stands fully erect during the day, surviving for exactly 8 years before dying, which signals the onset of the final global famine.
That is pure, unadulterated nightmare fuel. A total breakdown of the biological laws of nature.
It is the absolute end of the Kali Yuga, the slate being wiped clean.
Okay, let's take a deep breath. We need to wrap our heads around the totality of this. We started with palm leaves and ended with giant mutated ants and asteroid strikes.
It's a lot to process.
Is this a doomsday script designed to terrify 17th century villagers into behaving morally? Is it an incredibly advanced mathematical analysis of socioeconomic and geopolitical trends? Or is it a literal, unavoidable, step-by-step roadmap of what is coming for us?
Well, either way you look at it, history has been thoroughly checked. The astrological math aligns, and the physical receipts are terrifying.
Which brings us to a final, mind-bending philosophical concept that we haven't even touched on yet. The ultimate implication of the Kalagnanam.
Exactly.
Lay it on us. What is the lingering question of this deep dive?
It is about the fundamental nature of free will versus determinism. Let's assume for 1 second that Brahmam Garu is entirely right.
Okay, let's assume.
If a 17th century artisan carving on dead palm leaves could perfectly outline the modern commercialization of college admissions, if he mathematically understood the chemical hydration and expansion rate of a specific stone bowl in Yaganti, and if he could pinpoint the exact years of our deadliest global wars based on the orbit of Saturn, what does that actually say about human choice?
Oh, man. If the script is already written, do the actors matter?
Seriously, if he wrote down what you and I are doing today 400 years ago, are we actually making autonomous choices? Or are we just unconsciously acting out a predetermined script, a rigid timeline that was buried in a vault under a temple centuries before the United States was even a country?
That chronological timeline we talked about at the beginning, it really is shattered. The X-ray shows the jagged line of human history, but the line was drawn centuries before the bone even broke. We are just living in the echo of his predictions.
Exactly. The future is bleeding into the past. Time is not a straight line. It is a closed loop.
That is a thought that will keep you staring at the ceiling tonight. So, to you, the listener, next time you look up at the night sky and see Saturn moving through the stars, or look at the geopolitical news about Arctic shipping lanes, or watch an educational institution demand a massive donation, ask yourself if you are making a choice or if timeline has already begun. Thank you for writing Shotgun on this deep dive. History is checked. Stay curious.